Kyle. In this chapter, we're going to talk about Chapter 6, Overweight and Obesity, and how that is linked to physical activity. As in every other chapter, you have your objectives, and then some opening questions. What criteria are used to determine whether someone is overweight or obese? Things to kind of ask yourself before you start. Maybe you know these, maybe not. How much physical activity is consistent with weight maintenance, weight loss, or the prevention of weight gain? You'll have lots of key terms, things like overweight, obesity, BMI, all of those are very related. Body composition, which is different. Weight maintenance, weight gain, regain, body weight status, essential fat, and then things like CT, MRIs, DEXs, maybe you've heard of those before, just simple definitions of things. And so where this starts with is it starts with defining what is being overweight or obese, and typically that is thought about through what we call BMI, so body mass index, which takes into account how tall you are and how much you weigh. And then that can give us a status. They've now started to look at some weight ranges for people for things like normal weight or underweight or overweight or obese. However, those are not consistent with everyone. For me, as an example, if we look on this chart, weight range, if I was to be, actually for the most part, this particular chart defines me pretty well, but for some people, think about someone who maybe is only 5'2", 209 pounds being obese. That is correct, but they might be obese at 175 pounds. And then they may be normal weight at around 129 pounds. And so you have to look at those things. And so typically it more breaks down into BMI. These numbers are here. You can calculate your BMI very easily and get those numbers, and you can kind of see where those fall. Realize with BMI, it's not always the end-all be-all, and it should never be the end-all be-all when it comes to looking at people and their body composition or how healthy they may be. There's indications that if you fall outside the normal, you're less likely to be healthy, but it's not the only indication we should use, because maybe someone has a lot of muscle mass. Most professional athletes tend to be considered obese, but they are very healthy. And so it's things that must be looked at and considered over time. And so this chart just kind of gives us that picture of what we're looking at there. So when you look at this, the way they kind of classify this underweight, overweight, obese is through percentile. So if you grouped, they use statistics, but if you could look at the whole population, the bottom 5% would be considered underweight. The 5 to 50 or to 85% range is normal, 85 to 95 overweight, and anything over the 95th percentile is considered obese. However, we're going to look at some numbers, and you're going to see that the numbers that are there are outside of those percentages. It'd be a larger percentage of the population, and so this was kind of how they started the classifications, especially in children and adolescents. Somewhat applied to adults. There's some really cool charts in your books that show these curves on childhood BMI scales and that type of thing to classify those, just so you can get a picture of it. So one of the biggest things that is talked about in this and related to this overweight and obese and that type of thing is a caloric balance. And so there's a lot of different places that start to try to guide this caloric balances, because there's two different parts of it. There's the intake equation of calories, and there's the output, the burning of calories. And so there's a lot of guidelines for Americans put out there for different things. But what we do have kind of realized is that in a pound of body weight, so whether you're gaining a pound or losing a pound, there's about 3,500 calories associated with that. So think about the food we eat has calories. If you eat 3,500 more calories than you burn, you're going to gain about a pound. And if you burn about 3,500 more calories than what you consume, you're going to lose about a pound. And so that's a good number. It helps us to put things in perspective. And so that helps guide physical activity guidelines to trying to figure out the average American eats about this many calories. So what's about the average amount of exercise someone needs to do in order to maintain their current body weight or to lose some or to gain some. And so you can go back to chapter 4 and look at some of these things about energy expenditure and where those how those fit into this equation.